Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little demo here on how to do the eye. Again, most of the time I spent last class was on shading the forehead and shading in around the eye. What you can see is I've already kind of done a little bit of that value and added that value to my drawing over here before I really get started. It is a lot easier to do the shading around the orbital bone before you start drawing in and shading in the eye. A lot of people want to jump to the eye because it's sort of easier to sort of pick out what to do and how to do it. It's also one of those spots that if you do really well, it makes your picture look good. So people are a little impatient and they jump to that, and then afterwards they figure out that, oh no, I have to come back in and actually shade the eyebrow and the orbital bone, and what ends up happening is they end up smudging up some of the good work that they've done. So with that, what I would tell you is do the eyebrow and do the whole orbital bone area first. All right, get that area done and blended in, and then we can start working on the eyeball itself. Now, one of the things that I started working on the last video on the actual top eyelid. As I start working now, what I want you to keep in mind is I'm not making anything up. I'm going to go by what's in the picture. And in the picture, the white of the eye on the left side is not really that white. There's some shadow and some shade on this particular side. So I want to make sure that I come in and I add some of that myself. We want to make sure that we're honest and accurate to what the photograph has. There's a little bit of gray on this side, so I'm just going to take that dirty finger and add some to it. But I did the white of the eye on that side. I'm going to start with my iris, the color part of the eye, and the edge of that tends to be, at least in my picture, a little bit darker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and try to add some base level of sort of gray in there. And what I'm doing is I am kind of erasing inside of the, not erasing and darkening the pupil part a little bit, just so that when I do all this shading, I don't lose the original drawing part. You can see in the photograph there are a couple little white spots. Now you can always try to get in there with an eraser later on, but for me, for my money, sometimes working with a pencil, it's a lot easier to try to keep those things white and sort of clean in there before I do anything. And again, I'm just kind of outlining those, but I'm going through around them and just trying to make it a little bit darker. Now when I start blending, it's probably going to blend out a lot of that. Not a big deal. I'm going to come back in here and just gently, lightly get my finger in there and just kind of press a little bit of that pencil lead in, just kind of blend it in. And then I'm going to look in my actual photograph and I'm going to try to look and be sort of honest to what I see over there. I'm going to go a little bit darker in the center part. I'm going to be a little bit darker up on the upper part. And what we want to do, especially in these tight areas, we want to try to be very even and very soft with how hard we're pressing. Notice I'm holding the pencil a little lower than I usually do, but I'm really not gripping it very tightly. I'm also still working with that really sort of loose handle on it. That way I don't end up sort of pressing down super duper hard. And remember, you can build up the value a little by little. Now with my eraser, I'll try to sneak in there and kind of lighten up those little spots, and to kind of make those spots stand out more, what I do is I kind of make the area around the highlight a little bit darker, and that kind of helps make the highlights stand out a little bit more. Again, I'm going to try to look throughout the eye and see what I can see in terms of shading. I know that the pencil lead tends to be a little bit silvery, and because of that and because of the reflection, sometimes it gets to be a little difficult to kind of see because it kind of reflects a little bit of light if you see if I turn it from different angles. But if I kind of cover it up a little bit, you can kind of see the darkness of my picture as I'm working over there. Again, my apologies, just because the silver pencil, it tends to sort of just reflect a little bit, so it makes my work on the camera look a little bit lighter than what it's supposed to be. But you can see what I have so far. I've done the gray on this side of the eye. I've come in the upper part of the eye, just like you can see in the picture, is a little bit darker underneath here. I'm going to come back inside and work a little bit on the lid and just make the top part of that crease just a little bit darker, just to kind of make it match up with what I see in the picture. And you know what, I know that a lot of people are always dying to get those eyelashes in there. Even though my daughter has all these really dark long lashes, they may not be that pertinent or big in the picture, so don't go crazy. Just a little bit of a hint of them is all you need. Try not to do things that you don't necessarily see in the picture. And the inside part over here where I have my tear duct, that sort of the eye rolls in to create that depth, you always want to try to look for the dark shading that you might find in there. And then after you're done with the eye itself, you want to start working a little bit on the shading that you're going to see in the sort of creases and folds of the lower lid. Again, we're just working with our finger, so our job when we're putting down the values are to try to be as accurate as you can. And you'll notice the way I'm blending, I kind of blend by like almost rubbing my eye in real life, going in the same directions. I want to get a little bit of an edge here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back with my eraser, kind of lighten up right over there. And again, I don't want to use a heavy outline, but sometimes you do need to kind of create the effect of an edge. I'm going to go ahead and do that for the other parts of the eye. And also remember that I want to make sure that my grid lines kind of disappear. So as you're working on a particular area, make sure that you're coming in and erasing that. You know, sort of blending in here is going to kind of go with the contours of the face. I'm going to continue to add some value for the sort of orbital bone where we sneak in by the ridge of the nose. Got a real little highlight in here that I want to try to get back into my picture. And if you ever have trouble making a highlight stand out, just make some of the area around that highlight a little bit darker. Add a little bit of the gray. Yep. Yep. Again, if you notice the way I'm blending, try to blend in the same direction as like if you were blending on your actual face. If you were rubbing your eye or your cheek, your finger would follow the contours of your face. I think when you do this, it tends to make it look a little bit more realistic. It tends to help create the flow of the mark making around the face. Now, I'm just going to add just a little bit more here. And maybe just go just a little bit darker. Again, if you're going to make a mistake, I would rather you make it a little too light than a little too dark. So that is my demo for the eye. I hope that's helpful to you. It gives you a little bit of an idea of what to do and how to do when you get up to that point. And again, for me, I've done this quite a few times. And that being said, I could still spend another 20 minutes on this if I really wanted to. But we want to get the basic stuff over there again. The sort of reflected light from the room tends to make it a little hard to read my drawing. And that's what we got. All right. I'm going to stop this video here, and the next one I'm going to do is going to be for the nose.